Damn it, is everyone just trying to get in on this idol stuff these days?
But yeah, I guess I should give a little explanation about these particular episodes. These were OVAs released with the Blu-rays of this show after its original run on Toei Animation's YouTube channel. Basically, they acted as incentives to actually buy the disc, as otherwise you could just watch the stuff for free on YouTube. They were all the usual 10-minute segments, and since they came out in 3 volumes, they basically ended up as an extra 2.5 episode for the series, so we may as well cover them before we get into the actual finale of this first season. No, and it's also worth mentioning that in order to even make these episodes, they were also sponsored by some outside companies who Toei collab with by bringing in their mascots.
Which, of course, means I'll have to do a lot of explaining with these videos. Okay, let's get into it.
Our first segment, surprisingly enough, wasn't a collab with Sunrise in spite of some very obvious references to a certain robot in Odaiba, but no, instead it was this awkwardly drawn girl.
And before anyone asks, no, this episode was not animated by Mitsuru Ayama. I mean, for one thing, this character looks way too good to be one of his.
I'm not even really kidding, because this awkwardly not too moe girl, or Imaichi Moe Naiko, gained a lot of notoriety because of her very unique features. In December 2010, Kobe newspapers released a job ad for reporters/web editors for their more otaku subject matters. As a part of the recruitment process, the ad included what was supposed to be a simple art test, in which readers were supposed to point out 3 features that made this character awkwardly not very moe. However, some incredibly burst readers were able to see past the prejudices and actually found knockoff Hatsune Miku as moe in her own unique way. As a result, she developed quite the cult following through pure memedom, in particular on Pixiv, more on them in just a bit, and Nico Nico Doga.
FYI, that is from one of the most badass MMDs ever. Look it up for yourself.
Anyway, rather appropriately, this show gave this awkward character, who was never even meant to have a character, the voice of the Precure with the most awkward dance ever. She had been hired by the Underground Empire as an assassin to take down the RGZ under the condition that she be made into the Empire's official mascot. Thus, in order to fight the literal super robot girls, she was given a robot to pilot that was pretty much made for her. Yeah, believe it or not, this cousin to the Vulcan 300, known as the Korzenai or Dissonant Robot, is a real-life toy created by a company called Zarigani Works.
They're a quirky toy company, to say the least, and this thing that's meant to be a shoddy proximity of a Gundam made out of wood is their mascot.
And much like Imaichi, it gained a cult following for how awkwardly weird it was. Thus, the ultimate combination of awkwardness took on the RGZ, and in spite of the shoddy build of her mech, she did have the ultimate weapons to take down the robot girls. Well, that and unmodifying being that managed to get Zetchan and Gretchan.
This is what happens when you let JC staff take over your animation.
Though on that note, I do love this little key animation of Imaichi where they actually managed to animate a poorly drawn character incredibly well, which needless to say is quite the feat. It was done by Tamotsu Ogawa, who we will see a few more times in the show, and he has done work on stuff like One Punch Man and Gurren Lagann, so of course he'd animate a robot with a giant drill. Fortunately, it was stopped by Grenda, who managed to avoid the beam, and even managed to reflect it back onto Imaichi, resulting in... Yep, like when you multiply a negative by a negative, you get a positive, or in this case, a stereotypically moe anime girl, and an Obari robot, and yes, he was an animator on this one, and even admitted on X that he had designed this thing. However, both the pilot and the robot didn't want to be just your typical moe characters and lose out on their memedom, thus the RGZ decided to help them by punching the moe right out of them. With that, the segment ended with the villains defeated, and the two returned to normal after being tapped on like an old TV.
That makes sense to me.
For the second segment, they just decided to bring in all of the collabs possible, as whilst chasing the Underground Empire, the RGZ ran into a mascot fair. They tried to find their villains hidden amongst them, but first they had to deal with a bunny with a keikaku. This is Wooser, a character created by a member of the band Supercell Yoshiki Usa and illustrator Tomoko Fujinoki. He had featured in his own short CGI anime by the studio Sanjigen, in which they managed to pull off a lot of collabs of their own, including with the likes of Miss Monochrome, Kill la Kill, which was appropriate since they did do the second ending theme for that show, and Ultraman, though in that case, Wooser was just kind of talking to himself.
おいウーサーこんなとこで何してんだ
Yep, the character was voiced by Mamoru Miyano, who for whatever reason, they didn't have him voice his character here. Maybe there was some sort of scheduling and or contractual conflicts, but either way, it was also kind of funny to have Gretchen speak for him, resulting in Inori Minase trying to pull off her best Miyano impersonation.
完全生物たるこの俺に傷一つつけることなどできるもの気がする
Anyway, one of this character's defining traits was being a womanizer, so of course he tried to put the moves on Grenda, but she wasn't interested in your regular millionaire plebeians. However, after dealing with one troublesome mascot, another one replaced him, this time Yari, the official mascot of the city of Utsunomiya. I think she was supposed to promote the beautiful flowers of her city, however, since this version was voiced by Tomoko Kuroki, I guess those flowers had turned a little toxic. The RGZ managed to avoid her toxins for the most part, but she did get Gretchen's DS, which set her off.
冷凍台風
If only more annoying mascots could go out that way.
The final mascot they had to contend with was Lurch-san, the mascot of the Niigata Prefecture. And as he himself explained, he was based on a real-life person, Theodor Ian Virch, who was a general in the Austro-Hungarian army, who as a part of his service, essentially ended up introducing and popularizing skiing to Japan. Thus, he tried to threaten the RGZ by saying that assaulting him could result in an international incident.
こんなのは偉い人が考えればいいんだロケットパー
Spoken like, well, really, any politician.
Not giving any crap, Zetchan figured that she could solve all of her problems with just a bunch of breast fires. In the ensuing chaos, the Empire tried to escape in a Gold Nagai costume. Yeah, in case you were wondering who this smiley dude was who kept on appearing throughout the series, it's Nagai's caricature of himself. However, it did make for a very mobile costume, as they were soon busted by Zetchan, who blamed them for ruining the fair, and definitely not her and her fiery breasts.
Good night, everybody.
The final segment, oh thank god, doesn't require much explanation, as it was just a collab with Pixiv, basically the DeviantArt of Japan. About the only thing I have to kind of explain is Pixiv-tan here, as she was the official mascot of the website, who had even been featured in her own sponsored manga, that I haven't read so I can't say much more about it. But yeah, she was hosting an event where everyone would be able to send in their drawings of the RGZ. And the initial ones they got weren't all that flattering, though to be fair, they were pretty accurate. As a result, the audience, both live and in the comment section, turned against them, which was exactly what Pixiv-tan wanted, as she was actually working another collab with the Underground Empire, who were the ones sending in those pictures. Pixiv-tan was doing this to lower the value of the RGZ, and then her website could sweep in and buy them up cheap.
In short, the future of Ubisoft. Yeah, Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't gonna save y'all from being bought out by Tencent.
However, the RGZ could also submit their own pictures, but Zetchan wasn't quite the artist, still better than me at least, and Grenda was...
こんなの載せたらピクシブ閉鎖ペク人道的にありえない
Oh, come on. Your site's policies are just way too strict these days.
Fortunately, Gretchen was a good SFW artist who could submit her own work, which were actually illustrations by the staff of the show, Kenji Sawada, Masao Kawase, Hajime Mitsuda, and Hiroshi Ikehata. And I think some of the previous ugly submissions were done by Akiko Sato and Kano Gawa. I can't say for sure, I'm just going by the order in the credits. Regardless, Gretchen's quote-unquote submissions inspired some other artists to make their own stuff, which turned out to be actual fan art that you can find on Pixiv, much like that one episode of VTuber Legend. And of course, they were all really well done, especially this one done by Inori Minase. Yeah, this is the one true Gretchen submission. But yeah, as a result of things shifting back in the favor of the RGZ, Pixiv-tan got frustrated and accidentally revealed her plans. This resulted in the usual beatdown, complete with a cartoon hole in the shape of her taking the rocket punch, which yeah, I'm not even gonna try to figure out the physics behind that. It also ended up exposing the Underground Empire, leading to the usual chase and another beatdown. And with that, this final OVA ended wholesomely enough, with Gretchen appreciating the good response she had gotten for her fan art, or more likely Kenji Sawada's illustration.
These OVAs were a lot of fun to watch, and even kind of fun to learn more about.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit of a pain for me, as I have to write freaking essays about this stuff. I still enjoy looking up this stuff, which is what a good sponsorship should do. Probably my favorite was the first one with Imaichi Moe and Aiko, as hers is a fascinating tale about how an unassuming newspaper ad managed to achieve peak beandom through its quirkiness, and the ways they actually made her wonky design look good were pretty damn creative even before she got moified. The second OVA was probably the weakest, though more by default. I mean, my biggest complaint was just that they didn't bring in Mamoru Miyano to play Wooser to really hit home that comedic delivery, but the rest of the mascots were a lot of fun in getting across the fact that they are supposed to be just these wacky characters. And the third OVA was very enjoyable for someone who does have a Pixiv account and does appreciate the passionate submissions I've seen on that website. The fact that this show had got some great illustrations really highlighted how they managed to connect with admittedly a niche but still very passionate fandom. Heck, considering this was the last RGZ episode released before they got renewed for a second season, it does feel like an ideal send-off for these girls. However, we still got one more episode for the season to really hammer home how insane and unique this series was, as overall, these were just some fun extra episodes that did their job at both elevating their sponsors by having these robot girls beat the crap out of them. Yeah, don't ask me how that works out.
Thank you for watching, and if all possible, maybe you could go check out some of the other videos we made last weekend, because we put a lot of work into them.
That said, I do think this is going to be one of the better seasons we'll cover ever since we started to do this whole multi-series review format, so if anything, we are going to keep at it.
Look forward to all that. Until next time, though, farewell for now, my friends, and looks like my Pixiv commission is finally done. Perfect.